Uh, Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are, and welcome to Chattering with Nicholas Vince. And this week I am joined by Lawrie Brewster and Sarah Daly. So, ladies first, say hello, Sarah.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
Oh, Lawrie, say hello first. That's fine.
Hi there, Nicholas. Hello.
Um, That's brilliant. Thank you so much indeed for joining me, guys. So the way that we're going to do this interview is we're going to work backwards. So we're actually going to talk about your most recent project and one that's coming up. You're working most closely on at the moment, and then we're going to work backwards and talk about your earlier stuff. So the one that we're going to start with is called "The Unkindness of Ravens." So tell us a little bit about that, please.
Oh well, feel free to begin. I'll just enjoy my wine as you describe the synopsis for the entire
So Sarah first.
Sure. Basically, the story follows this basically British Army veteran who's suffering from PTSD, and he finds himself homeless on the streets of Edinburgh because of this horrific event that happened to him during the war in Afghanistan, where basically he sees one of his comrades who's fallen and injured being pecked at by crows and ravens. So he has this phobia basically of crows and ravens that's really damaged him and is the source of his PTSD. So his counselor has a great idea of sending him to the Scottish Highlands to this artist's retreat, where he hopes to sort of face his demons and recover from these terrible visions that he's getting. But basically, once he's there, he battles his demons in not only a metaphorical way, but in a real way, when the ravens manifest as these evil black-clad raven warriors. So there's a sort of a mythical, multi-dimensional element to the story that gets sort of more and more fantastical and epic as it goes along.
Okay, all right. So, who came up with the idea? Is this your original idea, Sarah, or?
Pretty much always Lawrie and I work together in the initial stages to come up with a concept, and we'll almost always start with some kind of mythology or folklore legends, that sort of thing. We knew that we wanted it to be quite originally anyway, quite a small story of one guy's struggle in one location in the Scottish Highlands. It kind of grew legs and arms as it went along and became a lot more epic in scale, but essentially that's the kind of story that we wanted to tell.
Yeah. I mean,
we started that way.
We love the idea of these stories starting quite modestly and then growing to become these kind of really disturbing, epic confrontations. And you know, one of the fun things about this character when he is away in this little cottage, this little artist retreat in the middle of nowhere, is when the birds living around the cottage begin to pay attention to him. And so we combine this classic psychological horror element with this mythological background that we've created. And so the really uncanny aspect of the film is when you see birds kind of watching him, you start to wonder, is there actually something else going on? Have they singled him out for some reason? And because he has this survivor's guilt and this feeling that perhaps he wasn't meant to, be spared by the birds that day, that perhaps they've come for him at last, it makes every attention paid to him that bit more macabre and sinister. And we really ramp it up. It gets to the point of sheer madness where you'll really be trying to interpret whether this could be psychological in his head or whether the sheer depth of mythological horrors and forces that are kind of amassing against him could actually be quite literal, could be really, in fact, real.
Okay, now I've seen the trailer for the film. Your lead actor, I think, is in Lord of Tears. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's been in basically all of our films so far.
What's his name?
His name is Jamie Scott Gordon.
And how did you meet? How did you guys know Jamie to begin with?
Well, originally we actually just found him on a Casting Call Pro on the casting website, But he lives in Edinburgh, so just across the water from us. So we just loved his look. I mean, he's got a magnificent beard. So yeah, we just met up with him and really clicked. He's a really, really enthusiastic, ambitious guy, and he's loads of fun. I mean, obviously doesn't get much of a chance to be hilarious in Ravens because it's quite a little bit serious. But he's just a great upbeat energy to have on set, and really throws himself into whatever you give him to do. So
yeah, because Jamie is so determined to win his Scottish BAFTA, it means as a director I can throw all sorts of hell at him, because it's really through pain and suffering that actors get a chance to express the souls of their characters, you know. And within the horror genre, it means we can throw everything at him, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, he seems he was great in Lord of Tears and so on, and I think he's, as you say, you've done other films with him as well. I think it's really nice when you get to see actors again. You know, I come from a similar background with Clive. He used the same actors in his first 3 films, and we really benefit. And I think it's really nice for actors and directors to, you know, build up that kind of relationship. Okay, so coming back to the film itself and the idea of the film, how we were talking when we chatted earlier in the week, this seems to be, from the clips that I've seen, very FX intensive. Is that right?
Well, the film does feature over 1,200 visual effects, but that said, though, the film actually begins as a taut, slow burn psychological thriller. And although this all comes in, you know, as the story escalates, we effectively like to kind of give it the feel that it's quite naturalist and pastoral almost, the film. Like it could feel like you're a drama rooted within the psychological experience of the character and the emotional experience of what he's gone through. But then hell itself does, you know, fall onto this poor man's shoulders, and we do see all these incredible effects when we try to realize this impossible, almost demonic landscape that him and his threats, his dangers, his foes reside in.
Right.
And also just for the sequences that do take place during his military service, they required effects as well. We try to, well, we recreate battles set in Afghanistan, and then we create dimensional realms filled with you know, human slaves and their hundreds, you know, being tortured by these terrible things, you know. It's a case where a film that might otherwise look modest and natural suddenly takes the audience through a pitch black door into another completely unexpected experience. So we hope that'll be quite a shocking revelation, and yes, one filled with many visual effects.
It's interesting because we often have conversations on the shows about the difference between effects and CGI and practical effects. What's your kind of view? What sort of balance are you able to achieve in a film like Unkindness of Ravens between practical effects and VFX or CGI?
Well, our opinion really is that wherever possible, we like to utilize practical effects and makeup. And then as CGI, our guiding philosophy really is that it is often useful for depicting that which is either too big or too small to be realized by practical effects. So that might include, for example, using CGI to help with matte painting, creating, like, you know, extensive landscapes and manipulations, or things that are quite tiny. So for example, like if you're seeing things animate across people's skin, maybe like a cellular level, or things like that. So in other words, we would use CGI modestly and tastefully. In other words, you wouldn't really, hopefully, if we're doing our job right, you wouldn't really notice it. Even when, for example, we're doing the effects for the Ravens, I mean, we use a cross between real birds that were there on set, as well as puppetry. And then, as instead of using CGI for Ravens, which you would normally use, for example, when they're flying, what we preferred to use was footage of Ravens that we had shot, and then we would combine the footage. So in other words, we would cut out the ravens and add them to shots so that they would flawlessly link. So at least that way you're still using real material, wherever possible. Whereas I think whilst a lot of CGI could be great, you'll see 3D ravens being animated and such like when they're flying about. It's wherever possible, it's good to try and capture an image that has been inhabited by a life form, if possible.
Yeah, I was curious about that. So when you say that you had ravens on, you had ravens on set. So I'm just going to pour myself whilst I try and ask this question.
You need one of these colors.
I'll take some of your wine. Oh, that would be cool if I had a glass of wine set up. If only I'd thought of that earlier on. So did you have any trained birds, or did you just go to a place where you knew there were lots of birds you could film?
Well, we had a bird handler help us with a couple of birds when they were used in close proximity, and they would interact with little foodstuffs or paste and sniff around and peck, but could only do so quite modestly. So when you see them in the film, they're just used on occasion. And most of the time when you're seeing the ravens be aggressive, and for example, a manner that might be reminiscent of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds when they're pecking, that is with a puppet.
Right, right. Okay, so I'm curious as to how you approach something like this, because we're talking about a feature film here. So you've got the money, and we'll come up a bit later on to talk about getting financing and so on. When you wrote the script, do you write, because you've done a lot of work in VFX, Lawrie, when you write the script, do you think, okay, I know I'm going to write this in because I know this is how I can do it? Or do you, and for the both of you, just write, okay, this is what we want in order to tell the story, we'll work out how we can do it later?
I think it's a bit of both, really. Like, I pretty much always start writing a script having a good idea of what resources are available, and usually even knowing the location of where we'll shoot, so that I can try to get the most out of it. You know what I mean? I'll know what rooms there are, so I'll know where I can set it to get, maximum use of it. But I do try not to stop myself from putting something in just because I think it's going to be difficult, and I know I'm going to be on set trying to make it happen, which it is tempting sometimes. But no, you want to, at the first stage, at least in the first draft stage, you want to put everything in there that you would like to ideally have in there, and then after, when it comes to the future drafts and shooting scripts, then you'll look at things that maybe aren't so feasible. But to be honest with us, it tends to be that we're adding more rather than taking things away. So
that's my fault.
Yeah, mostly it's Lawrie that comes along and says, "No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine."
Only one head? Can't it have 10 heads?
Yeah.
And we need those elephants. We need those marching elephants.
You always need them. You always need them.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So you guys said that you worked on this together. Do you sit down and physically write in the same room at the same time, or does one of you do a draft and then the other one look at it and feed back, or how do you work together on this?
Well, really we work together mostly in the early stages, coming up with the concept. And Lawrie will do a lot of writing that's like backstory stuff, or like mythos stuff. Like for example, with The Unkindness of Ravens, he wrote all of the sort of mythos relating to the ravens, and what world they're from, and how the rules work, things like that. Or on Lord of Tears, for example, he wrote the sort of the backstory that preceded the film. So then I'll take that. We'll have a loose idea sort of where the actual structure of the present day film will take place, and I'll write a treatment and run it by him. But basically then I just go away and write the actual first draft of the script, pretty much like in isolation.
So basically you work with Lawrie on creating, in a TV series, it'd be known as a Bible. This is the world in which your film is going to inhabit, and you've got some ideas, the concepts, and the kind of a brief outline. Then you sit down, you start adding in the dialogue and so on with these characters you've created.
Yeah.
And then is it just a backwards and forwards with notes saying, okay, we'll try this?
Yeah, after the first draft's completed, yeah, we'll just have, a really long conversation about it and talk about where it could be better. And usually it's Lawrie coming in with more visual ideas, like, from a director's standpoint, obviously, of, it'd be great if this sequence was longer, or if we could have some more.
And sometimes from a producer's as well, because with these smaller films, I'll be doing both jobs really. So for the producer side, it will be maybe this, if we can up the spectacle for this part, then that will be a memorable moment for helping us to not just tell the story but market this film as well and things like that. So the producer in me is like, oh, money shots, and the director in me will be like, hey, well, maybe we could visually try it like this. And it'll just help Sarah get an idea of what's possible or what's allowed, because she'll be trying to write within the limitations of the budget, which Sarah does great. But as a producer, I can kind of let her know that it's okay to run a bit more crazy on this idea or that idea, which might be really awesome.
That's interesting, and we just want to feedback from writer and director Paddy Murphy. I don't know if you guys said the dream script first, the shootable script comes second, and elements of both make it into the final movie. Awesome advice, Sarah. Hi, Paddy. So that's interesting. So what roles do you guys end up by doing? Obviously, you kind of co-write, but what are the official job titles that you take on yourselves?
Well, I mean, effectively, the background writing that I'm doing is kind of like, it's almost like fan fiction that you might otherwise find once a film had been made. That I'm doing things that aren't related to the immediate story neither. They'll build it. For example, like they'll be about say in the case of the Ravens film, about the Ravens and the gods and all this kind of stuff. Things that won't necessarily be represented in the film or in a clear way, but provide this background that Sarah could draw on. Also, it's fun as a director to be able to have those materials and as well to draw on, because again, it adds more dimensions than you might otherwise get from just a script produced without them. So, I mean, basically, I would say that I'm a director, at least for our company's films, and mostly I produce as well, and I'll work as a producer with other companies for their films as well. And I think, and for you, Sarah, is quite a few titles for you.
Yeah, I mean, mostly technically I'm a writer, but when it's a small company like ours is, you end up doing many jobs. So like on Ravens, for example, I was assistant director on the shoot and did sound design and oversaw the soundtrack as well as doing a couple of tracks for it. So yeah, you end up wearing many hats, but I guess writer is my
is your primary role. So and just to kind of elucidate on that a little, you are a singer-songwriter as well, is that right?
Yeah.
Because I remember the credit from Lord of Tears. That you used some of your music there as well. So you've got a script, you're now moving up to shooting, and so on. What do you think is the biggest? How do you approach that? So you've got to bring together a crew, you've got to bring together cast. How do you? Let's start with casting to begin with. How do you approach casting?
Right. Well, in respect to casting, really for us, I would say we look for people. Most of all, the first rule of casting for us is good-natured and reliability. I would say those are the two qualities. Obviously, one might expect it to be the artistic quality of the performance. And it's true, of naturally we do place a priority on that, but ultimately you have to work with people who you feel you can genuinely collaborate with, and who are we're just simply lovely people. who are fun to work with, that can make the experience of producing a film for everybody positive. And we look for artists as well who are ambitious creatively, who feel like there's things they want to do, with their craft as well, so that they can contribute ideas that we might not have thought of for the characters that will improve them further. So we come from a genuinely collaborative perspective, where we're all about people trying to meet their potential and grow their potential with the films.
And do you both? So when you audition, do you both sit in the audition room?
Well, pretty much. I mean, being a guy, we tend to be quite simple with casting. Being a heterosexual guy, we tend to be quite simple with casting. It's just like, hey, she looks cute. What about Tina? But it's really
Terrible.
Sarah that has the strongest influence with casting, because she has much better taste than me.
Sounds very. and we've got a question come in from Kim Lehman, and I'll come back to finding a crew again in a moment. And I'm going to go, Kim, I'm going to switch your question round. Sarah, what musician do you look to or listen to for inspiration?
Ooh, well, see, that depending on the project. Like, before I start writing any script, the first thing I do is I compile a playlist to write to, and I find that really like directs the tone of what I'm writing. So for example, for Ravens, there was a lot of the soundtrack for the Field in England, the Ben Wheatley film.
Yeah.
There was some Radiohead, some kind of downbeat 80s synth. Whereas for the script I'm writing at the moment, it's much more classical, like the Vertigo soundtrack and sort of 40s style stuff. So yeah, but basically anything that's quite melodramatic and moody, in terms of inspiration to write, at least. In terms of inspiration in general, I love Radiohead, Kate Bush, Jeff Buckley, Joanna Newsom. I've quite strange and broad taste, I guess.
That's great. And Lawrie, the question from Kim for you is, who would you say inspired you the most in special effects?
Well, for special effects, it has to be the music artist Chaka Khan. All visual effects artists work according to her own. Thankfully, I don't actually do VFX as much now. My background was in VFX, so I did do VFX all the time. I now have a tragic minion who has replaced my role as the primary VFX artist in the company, my erstwhile bespectacled cousin, Michael Brewster. So what inspires him to do VFX is me shouting over him, when is it done? And it'll be done by next week. You miserable little man.
That is interesting. One of the questions I wanted to ask: because you worked in VS and artistically, Lawrie, do you come up with the images, the design for the Raven Warrior? The thing. Do you first sketch out before you hand it over to your poor berated cousin, bespectacled cousin?
Well, with Ravens, I worked with a friend of mine, Gavin Robertson, who's also a director of photography for the film, and he's a great illustrator. And we would just discuss the ideas. Again, it was with Sarah as well. We'll normally just get around, and I'll appear from the office bombastically in my dressing gown with some kind of divine idea. Men with raven heads, it's magnificent. There must be something. And what they'll manage to do is they'll help craft it into a vision with taste, as opposed to the more outrageous idea that I might have originally have had. But yeah, it's collaborative, and oftentimes when we think of art, we imagine it as being the summation of quite divine-like inspirations. But oftentimes the best creative ideas, they'll come from something quite small or superficial, but its strength and its power will come about from positive, fun, and enthusiastic discussion with your fellow artists. So from Ravenheads, we then thought of things like, and they could be like, they could draw from inspiration such as the Morrigan myth from Celtic mythology, or there's the Karasu Tengu from Japanese Shinto mythology, where these are samurais with bird heads that are often crows. And so it's combining all these elements, which comes about through discussion rather than solitude sometimes.
That's very interesting, and it kind of touches on something we talked about in our previous discussion about the fact that your films generally are based in mythology, in Celtic mythology, and so on. Where I believe this is a passion that's shared by both of you. Where did this start? Where did this interest in mythology come from?
Well, for me, originally I was training to be a minister for the Church of Scotland ages ago at the University of St Andrews. I would have been fabulous, Nicholas.
Listen, I've just watched Spotlight this afternoon.
Right.
Look, I was still able to have a regular sex life in the Church of Scotland. It's a very liberal church. Yeah. Anyway, I was pretty much a hippie mostly. Anyway, and but studying religion and also the religion of other civilizations, ancient religion, from Roman and Greek history. I did a lot of study in ancient history when I was at university as well. In fact, to be honest, most of my core units were in ancient history, really, with theology, and that was always interesting. I think even when you're a kid as well, the stories of Odysseus, and all these kinds of things are quite incredible. And then eventually you can appreciate that your own culture, for example, for us being Scotland or Celtic, has such a kind of rich history as well, which hasn't really been explored. So for me, I find it interesting to look at that, though I do like to combine them with other cultures as well. So for example, the Owlman is inspired by the god Moloch, a deity from Carthaginian and Phoenician religion. And then we thought, well, let's combine that with some of the head-hunting cults of early Pictish Scottish culture, where they often used animalistic beliefs, and thought, what if we had a hybrid? So that's the kind of way that I would get inspired by, is thinking of how you could bring all these different aspects together, reach far back into the past and draw something that people might not have seen before, and bring it into the light of the modern world and use it to freak them out in a way they might not have been disturbed before.
Okay, all right. And Sarah, where does your interest in mythology come from?
Well, I guess being Irish, you're exposed to a lot of the legends and folklore from a young age, really. And again, it's a well that's not really particularly been explored that much in terms of film. I mean, you occasionally see, well, leprechauns or maybe now and then a banshee, but not a lot of the more obscure or, to me, more interesting myths. So it just feels like a really fertile ground to go looking for stories and creatures and different worlds to represent. So it just seems to make sense to me, especially in the context of horror, to go looking into the past for these stories that have, I guess, resonated with people for centuries. So why shouldn't they continue to?
Sure.
It's interesting. Okay, well, whilst we've been talking, we've had 3 comments come in. One is just from Bruce Todd, who says, I have great hope for the upcoming soundtrack of The Lord of Tears. For the upcoming soundtrack. The Lord of Tears soundtrack is utterly amazing.
Oh, that's lovely.
And again from Paddy, loved Lord of Tears. You are mighty fine filmmakers.
Oh, cheers, Paddy. Aren't they lovely?
He's gorgeous.
It's good to be appreciated for your genius, because
don't shut up, Lawrie.
See, I'm going to let you. I'll let you say that, Sarah. I'm not going to say that. Sorry, Paddy was saying, yes, do you two work primarily with the same crew? As in, do you have a little collective, and how important do you think that is?
Yeah. I mean, we basically see our crew as like a family, really, that we basically take with us to every shoot. I mean, it grows in number, but we like to maintain that same core bunch of people, that we just know that they can all get along, that they're all enthusiastic, easygoing, people, no divas. um, and that we can just all kind of grow and improve together. You want to take these people with you on your journey, because that's what makes it fun, because it's a difficult thing to make a film. It's stressful, it's long nights, it's tiring. So it's just great to have your friends around you when you're doing it, and feel that you're all working together towards creating something that you can all be proud of.
Yeah, and what about you, Lawrie?
Yeah, I mean that kind of almost holistic approach is one of the guiding principles of how we work. But at the same time, like Sarah was saying, our family does grow bigger, and we like to open that opportunity, because we know that there are so many people, young and old, with creative aspirations that want to work either on our films or collaborate with us on films or do all sorts of things. So we welcome that. I mean, as a producer, there's always ways you can think of how you can harness the potential of folk, or the desire to make content and things like that. We also have a YouTube channel that we've been figuring out what to do with, because we've been getting so many subscribers for ostensibly from our prank videos, and we see that as a great vehicle to try and experiment with filmmakers and artists who would like to work with us on little 2-3 minute shorts and ideas and things like that. Or folks that might just want to work with us on films and stuff as well. So they're always welcome to reach out as well.
Cool. That's interesting, because the slightly touching on this, the next comment comes in from Steph Andrujak. Sorry, Steph, I hope I've got your pronunciation correct. What is the obsession with birds? First Alman and now ravens. P.S. Alman was a fantastic creation, absolutely terrifying, and I loved your prank videos on chat roulette and location pranks too. Will we see Alman pop up again in the future, maybe as a minor part in the same universe as in your upcoming movies?
Ah,
Wow.
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Oh.
you'll see, you'll see another Owlman movie as well. I mean, you don't generate a character that is as successful as that and not find a reason to put them on kids' lunchboxes with 100 fan. I mean, we know we love that. We love the Owlman character, and we're looking at a new film now. We'll be making an announcement fairly soon regarding a new Owlman film. We're looking to utilize it as an opportunity to create what could be a new franchise, really, of prophetic stories about the Owlman set in different eras and all kinds of things. We think he's a fabulous character, a bit like, well, even for example, Hellraiser, when the character Pinhead unexpectedly became like particularly popular, because before, with that film, it was just the Cenobites.
Yeah.
But we feel like there's so many more stories we can tell, because it's as a very evil puppet master like God. There's much malevolence and horror that can be, expressed with him. So yes, there will be more.
Well, yeah, it's interesting, the way that it is monsters that tend to go on. Few exceptions. You do have female protagonists going on from film to film, but really it's the monster who tends to become the icon of a film series. So we've been referring to Owlman. It's worth just kind of giving us a brief synopsis for those people who don't know about the film Lord of Tears, which features Owlman. Sarah, do you want to do the honors of giving a brief synopsis of Owlman, or should we give it to Lawrie this time?
I think Sarah would be
Do
very
it
excited to do it. You would never deny her the
Sorry,
honour
you're the
of
producer.
a synopsis.
Go for it, Sarah.
Okay, so let's remember what happens in Lord of Tears. Essentially, it's the story of a teacher, James Findlay, who's just lost his mother, and finds that he's been left this crumbling old mansion where he grew up. And he decides to go there, even though his mother doesn't want him to try to get to the bottom of something that he thought he saw as a child that's been haunting his nightmares ever since, which is this owl man figure. So he goes to the old house, hoping to, overcome his fears, but is confronted by the very creature of his nightmares. And alongside this, there's a romance story that has some big twists that I don't want to reveal. But it gets pretty dark and pretty strange. So it's got a gothic romance feel to it, I guess, with a kind of supernatural mystery thread that pulls you through.
And I'm right in thinking, Lawrie, you've got some news about a new version of.
Oh yeah. Well, we have this during our Kickstarter for The Unkindness of Ravens last November. We made available as well a pre-order for a new version of Lord of Tears, which basically has a bunch of improvements made to it. At the time we made the original Lord of Tears, it was a micro-budget film, and the kind of equipment and technology we had in the post-production was more limited. And so we found really that with all the lessons and with the investment we'd been able to make in our own kind of like nerdy technology, that we could make some, big improvements to Lord of Tears. Also took the opportunity to make some editing tweaks as well. So basically this new film, this new version of Lord of Tears includes a new edit, a new grade, which makes it look a lot prettier, and a new sound design and some additional music. And it comes in a 3-disc pack, which will include the soundtrack with the new songs that have been added, and probably about 3.5, 4 hours of extras, including interviews and all sorts of goodies. So it'll be a big 3-disc pack with gorgeous artwork as well, and a big fold-out panel box set. In the same manner of the Unkindness of Ravens packaging, actually, as well. The thing I'm most excited about is that on the spines of all these packages, each of our films has a Roman numeral, which will make the collection seem so complete, and it'll make it so painful when it's not complete. If you're missing one of those films, even if it's a terrible film we release in future, you don't need to buy number 4, or your spine collection will look ridiculous, So we hope to make that product available in November. We were taking pre-orders. We've just taken the shop down at the moment because we're redesigning it, and we'll be relaunching that in a couple of weeks. But yeah, we're working on that just as we're working on the release for The Unkindness of Ravens as well. So yeah, we should have both films out this year.
Oh, cool. All right, then this is hexmedia.tv.
Yeah, that's right. That's basically our corporate website. The shop will have a different domain, probably something like Hex Media Shop.
Exotic.
Keep it simple. It's always the best way. Just keep it simple.
Something sassy like that, Nicholas.
Honestly, just keep it simple. It really just makes everyone's life so much easier. A couple of comments that have come in. There's one from Paddy Murphy. I'll come to it in a moment, Paddy. Fergus Urquhart. In the vein of Ben Wheatley, when are you going to remake a cult horror film that nobody asked for?
Oh, poor Ben Wheatley.
Well, for that kind of glory, I really do require some public money from Channel 4 and the BFI to make that dream come true. If it did, then my favourite unnecessary remake would be The Devil Rides Out. I think that would be a good one.
Now that is one of my favorite movies. The book.
One of mine too, Nicholas.
Look, you're talking to the man who grew up reading Dennis Wheatley novels under the bedclothes with a torch.
Nice.
And staying up until, like 3 o'clock in the morning reading Dennis Wheatley novels, novel after novel after. You don't hear of Dennis Wheatley these days. But, it's kind of fun. But I mean, it's a great movie. The spider, still, the sequence with the spider, still.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I just loved it as a kid. I remember getting a big rev from my mum because I was drawing some kind of giant occult symbol in chalk with me and my sister playing, that we had to stay inside it to be safe. The angel was going to come and get us. Yeah.
Okay, well, apparently I did get Steph's name correct. Yay! This is from Paddy. This is a typical Irish comment. I'm going to summarize this, Paddy. Basically, what Paddy is saying, was talking about what you said about the answer about the cruise. It's just reaffirming how I know he works with Barry and Aaron and the rest of the guys. Too many to name at the moment. The great thing about Paddy's crew is that they all swap around and take turns and so on. Because I know Barry. Barry's done he's the cameraman, so he tends to stick to doing that. But Paddy has been first assistant when Aaron was being directing his film, which I'm really looking forward to seeing, by the way, guys. But and the importance of not having any divas. You guys are awesome and legendary. If you ever want another addition to any of your crews, I'm only across the pond.
Oh, that's lovely. You're our favourite, Paddy.
I just want to work with him and his crew again because we had so much fun last year. I want to see them all again. Okay, so we talked about Lord of Tears was basically your first feature film, and we talked a little bit, and we've kind of mentioned Hex Media. Hex Media is your company for making films. How did Hex Media come about? and I don't mind who answers, unless it was a dark satanic spell that came out of
it. Nicholas.
Well, and feel free to add anything inspiring, Sarah. I mean, Hex Media came about because it was a company we incorporated to dedicate our efforts towards genre feature film production. Before that, we had worked with other companies and had other companies that were doing corporate and commercial services. But we had managed to basically make the transition to working at the time full-time, about 5 or 6 years ago, into the creative industries in terms of feature film production. And so we thought, well, we had to kind of close the old companies and just focus on a new vehicle that could, I guess, be the vehicle of our hopes and dreams. So, so for Hex, that's what came about. Maybe for pragmatic purposes, you need a limited company, your business account. You've got to have this to make all your deals and everything like that. But yeah, we built that, and the very first thing, was Lord of Tears. We did our Kickstarter for that, and back in 2012, I think, was that 2012? Yeah. 2012, I think, in October or something. No, March it was.
No, it was 2013. Yeah, March 2013.
Something like that, long ago.
Yeah.
So we needed a company in our account for collecting funds from that as well, and things like that. If the Kickstarter had gone terribly wrong, and it would have perhaps been a short-lived company because we threw everything we had into it. But fortunately, it was a success with the Kickstarter and the release for that film, and us getting investment towards new projects, and folk also just coming back to help us on Kickstarter with Ravens. So yeah, that was a very ambiguous, vague, amorphic answer, wasn't it?
No, not at all. No, I think it was very clear.
Other male guests will have performed so much better than
you have a secret graph.
Not true at all. You're doing very well. What I was interested in, you mentioned Kickstarter, and for your first feature film, have you got any tips that you learned from doing that to pass anybody out, to other people trying? Because I think the move from short film to feature film is such a huge thing, and its magnitudes larger than doing a short film. Anything that you learned from that experience?
Yeah, I mean, Kickstarter is a pretty full-on, painful learning experience, but it's really rewarding too when it works. But I think you very quickly realize that it's not a case of just putting your Kickstarter online and waiting for the money to roll in. It really is like a full-time job, and a very stressful, tense, nail-biting full-time job where you have some days where there's just nothing happening and you're thinking, oh God, this is going to fail. We're going to look stupid in front of everybody. So yeah, the main tip was really just to be prepared in advance of it. Get everything set up, your Twitter, your Facebook, have a list of blogs and press people to send your link out to before you put it out there, and be prepared to basically give your whole life to it for the duration of the campaign, and you really have to put aside any ego or embarrassment or shame in order to make it work. But when it does, it's the best thing in the world. It's so rewarding and satisfying, and it's such a lovely way to connect with the people who want to see your project come to life, which is it's why you do it. So it's a really special experience as well as a difficult one.
Yeah. I mean, and as for tips, I mean, most folks do a Kickstarter at the start of their films. They're trying to raise money to make a film. Our experience is a bit different because we do Kickstarters when we've already produced the film and it's in post-production, oftentimes nearing the end of post-production. Now, I don't know if this necessarily is such a great bonus or not, but it can oftentimes give folks a little bit more confidence about backing our campaign. Our campaigns are also very product-led, so people feel very much that they're pre-ordering nice kind of fancy products, really. Although we sell things that really do help to raise more money, like credits and such, like these are very special interest kind of rewards that only certain types of folk, basically rich folks would like, who feel like, okay, I do want to help your film and I would like to buy into the industry and get a credit and it'll be fun. And then that's great because we really rely on those folk as well. But for most folks, it is buying a good copy of the movie with fancy additions. Because our company had a background in print and graphic design and packaging, that's an area that we're quite confident working in. So we can kind of promise these things and deliver them. I think for the average filmmaker, it's important to appreciate that if you don't have advantages in terms of product design, manufacturing, or marketing, you've got to be very cautious with how much you're aiming to raise. We had a few advantages in our corner as a company, at least. We could have 3 people work full-time dedicated on the campaign, and time to do planning as well. And we had the advantage of customer information from our audiences from Lord of Tears who we'd sold to as well. And that let us raise the most for a UK horror film in Kickstarter. But that totals 44k. But you'll see some in the US that raised 200-300, and a lot of times Kickstarters that fail in the UK for horror films are looking at their figures and thinking, yeah, I can raise 100k or 150k. Most of those that fail are actually trying to raise 6-figure sums, which is extraordinary when you consider that the 44k we raised last November was the highest for any UK horror Kickstarter, and with all those advantages in our place. Most of the pledges we received were from folks who had bought Lord of Tears before and had an experience of being satisfied with what we could offer. So if we hadn't had that, then we would have probably raised perhaps as much as, or just a bit more than what we did with our first ever Kickstarter, like for Lord of Tears, which was 12.5. When you look at the numbers, people aren't aware of those advantages and how things can build over time. So it's important to be modest, I think, with your initial goal.
Mm.
And trying to raise five figures, like 10,000 even for your first project is a challenge. Like with Lord of Tears, when we raised 12.5 in 2012, that was with coverage from all the big genre sites and with us pushing it, every day.
And had you done something similar, Lawrie? Had you already started making Lord of Tears, or was that literally just a cold start to get Lord of Tears?
Well, our film Lord of Tears was in post already when we did the Kickstarter for it, so it was a few months from completion, which hence we ended up shipping out our Blu-rays or DVDs within about 5 months after the Kickstarter, 6 months, something like that.
So I think basically,
but yeah, we did spend our own money on making the film and everything like that. So if it hadn't been successful, then I would have been living on your couch, Nicholas.
The dog is always glad of company, so I'm sure Bertie would be absolutely delighted. So we're coming towards the end of our hour now, and I just want to step back again to something that you before you got into the horror genre, or rather before you got into making Lord of Tears, etc. And this is Hit Record with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And tell us a little bit about how you guys collaborated with Joseph and what it is you worked on.
Basically, it was 2 short films called Morgan M. Morganson. And it was a story that I had written and posted online that Joseph Gordon-Levitt then got in touch with us about, saying that he wanted to develop it into a short film, which of course was incredibly exciting. It's not what you expect to hear on a random Tuesday evening.
How did he contact you? Just because this is through the Hit Record website, is that right?
No, randomly on the telephone, yeah. It was, really, it was a cold call, and I was totally
2 in the morning.
Yeah, 2 in the morning.
Yeah, when we were still working on corporate videos and that sort of thing. So, I mean, we'd both done creative stuff on the side, for forever, but that was at a time when we weren't able to focus on our creative stuff full time. So it was, even more exciting to see that come about.
Right,
I mean, it really helped understand our potential as well. I mean, with all the films we did afterwards, like the features and things. So I would say Hit Record is a really positive thing. It gave us a big inspiration.
Right, and when you say you posted the story online, Sarah, you posted it on the Hit Record website.
Yeah.
Which is just to give a bit of background for those of you who don't know about Hit Record. This is Joseph Gordon-Levitt's website, which he set up so that people can collaborate on ideas. So when you look at, there's an awful lot. You're absolutely, you wrote the story, etc., and Lawrie ended up by being in it slightly and doing a lot of the VFX on those 2 short films. Is that right, Lawrie?
Yeah, no, I basically did the VFX. Yeah, there was a great illustrator who did some of the drawings, Jennifer Maria, brilliant artist. And a cute little lady as well. And but basically, yeah, I was putting together all these drawings and things and 3D models I'd made and stuff like that. And Joe, he had these shots of himself performing in his apartment with Alexandra Hume, an actress whom we met through Hit Record, who is the female lead for Lord of Tears. So it's a great community. I worked really hard, busted my nuts on it, but it was also a really exciting opportunity because it was a chance to work with successful artists, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Channing Tatum, and played at Sundance and South by Southwest. It was exciting. And also Joe was really kind. He flew me and Sarah out to join him and hang out with them at South by Southwest in Austin. We got to meet a lot of other artists that worked with him on Hit Record. And in the years that have passed, Joe's done great stuff with Sarah and being like a real kind of supporter of our work.
It's an amazing website. It really is fascinating. For anybody who's watching who hasn't heard of it before, do go out and hit record.
Oh yeah.
It really is a fascinating concept. Okay, so we've got a question come in from Steph again. Thank you very much, Steph. Your locations in Lord of Tears were very atmospheric. Is there a place you've ever visited that has made you think, "Oh, this would make a really great location for a movie"? And have you ever written a script based on and inspired by a location you've previously visited?
I don't know about. Well, I mean, like just where we are in Scotland. I mean, we're surrounded by kind of amazing gothic, spooky locations. Like just outside our house is a medieval harbour and
Yeah,
a
basically
12th century tower. So yeah, a lot of the time I write around what's here. Yeah, you know, these crumbling ruins and cliff edge sort of seascapes, and um, yeah, working with what we've got here in Scotland is very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we tend to be quite pragmatic, although the choice of location is extremely important. Like extremely important. Um, we tend to kind of look for locations that we think will be accessible. For example, Britain has many stately homes, so you could if you're looking for that, you can do something. Sometimes though, we will go out our way though to try and find cool, weird locations if we're doing maybe a 1 or 2 day shoot. For example, and a project we haven't really announced yet, but we did do a couple of shooting days in Mary's Close in Edinburgh, which is a set of underground streets in Edinburgh that were built over from the 1700s. It's a remarkable labyrinth of underground buildings, and where people lived.
Hmm.
So that
Yeah,
could be more expensive.
yeah, we did write some scenes specifically to use that location,
Yeah.
just because we know how awesome it is.
And if you have a great location and you present it to a producer and say you'll do a great deal on it, then of course they're going to shoot there. These tend to be quite pragmatic decisions because I think as artists we feel that most locations, almost every location, can have a great story and something amazing happen in it through power of imagination. You know, some are easier to imagine something cool happening in, but you have to it's the imagination that has to be more flexible rather than waiting for something to make it kick into action through inspiration.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think the old adage that I always came across when writing is, if you're stuck at any point, just do some research. Just
Yeah.
pick up a book, a random book, just something that is actually going to be full of real stories, or probably, but not necessarily non-fiction. I think non-fiction I always found most
Hmm.
inspiring. The wonderful book called The Newgate Calendar. If you ever come across a book called The Newgate Calendar, it's full of stories, really interesting stories. Okay, there's two things I wanted to touch upon very briefly. Firstly, this is one come in from Paddy Murphy. It just says, "Thank you for your time, you wonderful people. Much love to you both and Nick, and well wishes on all your future projects."
Oh, thanks, Paddy. Looking forward to seeing your newest works as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, me too. He's got some wonderful stuff coming up in the pipeline. It's amazing stuff. Something we touched on briefly, I think Steph touched on earlier on about viral videos, the importance of viral videos. When did those come? These are the Owlman viral videos I'm talking about now. Did these come about as part of the Kickstarter, or were they just pure marketing? When did the viral videos for Lord of Tears come about?
Well,
I think
um,
originally
they,
it
they,
was with the chat roulette stuff, wasn't it?
yeah, it began with the chat roulette stuff. Um, I don't think we produced any during the Kickstarter. I think because the thing is, our company was also dealing with distribution as well, so we were responsible for selling the film as well. So our commitment to promoting the Owlman and the film, was longer than just the Kickstarter. So we wanted to try and excite people about the Owlman and get a chance for them to kind of capture their imaginations a bit. And it's also, jolly good fun as well, making ridiculous films where you have such a strange antagonist, terrifying members of the public or people on chat roulette.
Although I think that was
Oftentimes they're mostly
traumatizing for us.
masturbating. You find the ones that aren't.
Yeah. We were definitely more
it's hard
traumatized
work.
than the people watching.
You were more terrified than the people watching.
Yeah.
We've seen some things, Nicholas.
Does chat roulette even exist now, or is it closed?
Oh yeah.
Does it?
There's many iterations of it as well. So the Owlman was lurking on those, as well as our more ambitious videos where he was stalking urban explorers and popular visiting locations. And these are great fun to make. They're almost a bit like, although they're to help market the film and get people talking about it or interested in it, they're also creatively quite rewarding and fun because they breathe life into your characters in quite a different way. From the confines of the story, you're having your antagonists walk out, into what you might think of as the real world. And I think that kind of organic connection is quite appropriate when you're creating horror icons that are something you hope will be more than just the film, but could be something that can work in terms of cross-media, like in stories or comic or in artwork and things like that. So we're not very cynical about making the prank videos or promotional stuff. We kind of see them as almost extensions of our mythology or our characters' legends.
And were you at any point nervous about revealing your monster in these things? Therefore lessening the impact of the movie. I don't know how to be clear.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, I think the biggest challenge really with the prank videos is that the context of the prank video can affect the expectations of audiences for the film. So, for example, in some of the ones that were a bit more psychologically creepy, they attracted the type of fan that found the supernatural thriller aspect more rewarding. Whereas the ones when the Owlman was stalking people, they were maybe expecting more of a slasher type kind of horror film. But in terms of revealing the villain, I don't think it's such an issue because it's such a, at first glance, absurd or bewildering kind of appearance. The film is almost like required viewing just to understand what the hell it is, and the impact of its visual kind of attracts them to find the answer to that. So in other words, it was a positive rather than a negative that kind of spoiled them. Of course, you'll have seen Lord of Tears, so you'll know some of the twists and turns. If we'd gone with marketing based on other kinds of scary antagonists, then which would have given it away, that would have had an obvious impact. But the Owlman was almost quite a safe one because he was so ambiguous.
Right. Okay, so I've got just the last two comments come in. This is from Bruce Todd. Remind me, Unkindness of Ravens prank, the Superman T-shirt guy. How did he take it?
Have you seen the Raven prank at all?
I don't think so. I don't think I've seen the Raven prank. I don't think so.
That prank video is a little more controversial than the other ones.
Yeah, it didn't really work out the same way.
And is this on your YouTube channel? It is.
Yes.
So we can go away and have a look.
Yes, you can. Well, let's just say yes, he was quite upset at being surrounded by about 11 armored raven-headed warriors with machetes and blades, but not as disturbed as the prank we actually had to cut from the video, which will be on the extras of the Ravens Blu-ray. It was
we
on
don't
the channel
speak of it anymore.
No, we had it on the channel for about 5 minutes, but it was so appalling that we had to just take it down. It was just too controversial. But it's on the Blu-ray because we know that anyone that buys the horror Blu-ray will be sick enough to appreciate the prank.
The terrible things we did.
Personally speaking, I think anything that opens up our minds to the metaphysical possibilities of demonic raven men is to be applauded. You know,
Perhaps with prior warning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right. This is from the last. The last comment is from filmmaker Mark Logan. Love the locations thought. Currently, locations are a prime inspiration and driving force behind my projects. I worked with Mark on the Castle movie I did last year, Rats. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. You guys are inspiring. What you are achieving by what you are achieving in the genre. Sorry, I am late. Been on chat roulette. I believe you, Mark. I completely believe you. Okay, good. Lawrie, Sarah, this has been brilliant. Thank you so very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you for having us on.
That's been great.
Yep,
So
thank
what?
you.
So in terms of finding out more about Unkindness of Ravens and the reissue of Lord of Tears, just people should go to hexmedia.tv, or where else?
I mean, the best place for them to go really is there's the Lord of Tears Facebook page, or the Unkindness of Ravens Facebook page. Lord of Tears Facebook page is our biggest, it's got the most, so we post more regularly there. And folks can always add me on Facebook as well. I can't always get back to them as I'll be busy, you know, indulging in internet pornography, working in the office. But
and scaring
they can always
passers-by.
Yeah.
But I do post updates, especially if folks have aspirations to work in horror film. Then I do put notices out sometimes as well for things that are getting developed that are looking for collaborators as well. So I'm not inaccessible.
You're not.
I'm fairly accessible.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much indeed. Just before I close out the show, I just want to let people know that there won't be a show next week because I'm hoping to be away watching some short films. The following week, I'm going to be joined by a gentleman called Josh Milliken, who is from Crypt TV Family, who's going to come and tell us a bit about that. I'm going to discuss that and horror stuff and what's going on with Crypt TV, etc., etc. Where some of my previous guests have got short films being shown, etc. The last thing is just there was a terrible incident in Orlando, Florida, yesterday. The Pulse shooting last night. My only thought on this is, in the words of Dave Allen, good night, and may your God go with you. Lawrie, Sarah, thank you very much indeed for joining me, and I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Take care. Bye.
Hey, thank you. Bye.